Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. So, it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And I hope you're holding your loved ones close today. My beloved has gone off on a work trip, so I'm spending Valentine's alone. But it's fine. It's fine. We've got each other. We've got each other. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Labour. And specifically, its big problems this week. First of all, kicking off with the candidate for Rochdale. There's a by-election there caused by the death of the MP, the Labour MP, who was representing Rochdale in Lancashire, just north of Manchester. He had to be dropped. His name is Ali. And he had to be dropped as a result of some quite bad anti-Israeli remarks that could be construed as being anti-Semitic. Now, we're not going to get into a debate in the show or the chat today. I'm not going to be drawn into, allegations of anti-Semitism in the past and all that kind of stuff. What Labour did was they looked at what he said, and I assume it was reported by the Daily Mail, and I assume that they looked into it, and then when they had enough evidence, they said, right, we're going to have to drop this guy as our candidate for this by-election, which takes place on February 29th, so it's just in a couple of weeks' time, and it's too late to change the candidates. So there's going to be no Labour candidate standing in that election now. I'm guessing Mr. Ali is still going to stand. He might still win, but there's a general election happening sometime this year. It might be in May, so it might only be, and whoever wins might be George Galloway. It might only be for a few months. But this has thrown into sharp relief one of the problems that Labour have had for quite a long time, that we have spoken about often on this channel and other channels that we're part of our ecosystem here on the sort of left-wing TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, speaking people content providers, which is Labour comms isn't great, and they could have communicated this better. Also, it comes down to how decisive Starmer is looking. Now, I understand to an extent you are presented with an article, a hatchet job in a national newspaper like the Daily Fail, which is obviously a dreadful newspaper, and your first instinct is to go, okay, well, we need to confirm this is actually true. It turns out that the recording at this Labour meeting was made by a Corbynite Labour supporter who then gave it to the most right-wing newspaper there is. That says a lot, but also the fact that it seemed to have been said at a meeting and went unchallenged is also deeply concerning, because Labour, you can argue to your blue in the face whether Labour is anti-Semitic or has been anti-Semitic in the past or not. Let's put that to one side. Let's just look at perceptions, okay? Labour has been, in the recent past, perceived as being anti-Semitic. And there's quite a lot of evidence for this. Again, not going to get into a big argument about this, but essentially, this is my take on the situation. We have 4 MPs in Liverpool, and 2 of them, Louise Ellman and Luciana Berger, both Jewish, both women. They both left their role as MPs and left the Labour Party, and they both cited anti-Semitism as the reason. So the question I have is, if 2 black MPs, like half of our MPs in Liverpool, 2 of them were black, okay, and they left the party citing racism, would you believe them? Would your knee-jerk reaction be to be like, yeah, I guess this is, probably real, because why would they leave the party? Why would they give up their job, which is what you do when you leave a party as an MP, essentially, unless you go to another party and that can actually win an election, not necessarily change UK. So you got that, and then have a think about how you'd feel if it was 2 black MPs in the Conservative Party who said, right, we're leaving because everyone here is really racist. Or two Muslim, MPs in the Conservative Party who left because of Islamophobia and cited Islamophobia. I don't think you'd be running around going, no, it's all a myth, it's a hoax, it's not true. You'd be like, oh shit, this seems really bad. And we should listen to people in the same way that we should listen to women who have been abused. We should listen to children who have been abused. We should listen to minorities who have been abused. We should listen to them. We shouldn't listen to middle-class, middle-aged white men on the internet like what I am. Don't listen to me in situations like this, okay? Listen to the people who are actually at the coalface of this and have actually had to live with the Islamophobia, the sexism, the misogyny, the anti-Semitism, the transphobia. Ask them, okay? Ask them how they feel about it. Because a lot of this is to do with perception and how things come across to people. And if you seem to have a problem with anti-Semitism, your best route of defense is to make sure that it is stamped out wherever it's seen. When a case is presented to you, the worst thing you can possibly do is go, yeah, but is it really anti-Semitism? Is it really? I mean, I'm not Jewish, but there's two sides to every argument. I mean, are you being a bit oversensitive? Don't you think they're being a bit oversensitive? That's victim blaming. And that's completely not on. So, here's the situation. Labour has a perception. There is a perception of Labour as being anti-Semitic in the past. I think that Keir Starmer's done a very, very good job of stamping that out in the Labour Party. Now, with this news breaking over the weekend about this MP in Rochdale, I think that Labour acted too slowly. I think their comms were really bad on this. It came at a time when there's stories coming out about this internal investigation into the leaking of the big U-turn on the, well, it's not really a U-turn, but, the change in policy direction, let's say, on the £28 billion green spending promise. There's an investigation going. This is being headed up by Sue Gray, heir of Partygate fame, not going to the parties, but investigating them. And apparently some Labour staffers have been left in tears after being asked to hand over their mobile phones to prove that they haven't actually leaked this information to the press. I can see why that's upsetting. And honestly, is it that big a deal that they need an internal investigation? I mean, things are going to leak. Yeah, things are always going to leak. It's the nature of politics. They're not MI5. It's fine, and it's not as though it's a national bloody secret or anything. It's just a policy thing that makes Labour look a bit bad. But we're 4 months out from an election, or 3 months, or 2 months, or 6 months. I don't know. But by the time the election comes around, it's going to be kind of forgotten about. It is. It just is. So then, to compound things on top of the dithering. So, like I was going to say about. You're given this information that this MP has said something, prospective MP, sorry, candidate for Rochdale has said something at a Labour Party meeting, a local meeting, and it looks a bit anti-Semitic. But it was reported in the Daily Mail, and you haven't heard the actual recording yourself. So Starmer and the team, I think, should have, even if it was Sunday morning, should have just all got onto, the shadow cabinet, get onto Zoom and say, right, what are we going to do about this? And I think at that point, they should have suspended their support for the candidate pending further investigations. Simple as that. Just like, okay, this looks bad. This isn't great. This looks bad for the party. I mean, Rochdale is one seat that even if they lose it, they're going to win it back in a few months' time anyway. So it doesn't matter as much as the party's image as a whole. And so instead of doing that, they said they still backed him, which I think was a mistake. I think they should have been more cautious. And then when the actual recording was released and we heard some more of the things that Mr. Ali said, which were genuinely anti-Semitic, then that was it. It was it, but up to that point, the Labour was still saying they would defend him. And now we've got another problem with the former MP, Graham Jones, his name is. He is the former MP. I've written this down here for Hindburn. Don't know where that is. sorry, all those people in Hindburners out there. I bet Hindburn in the midnight oil. Yeah, he's been suspended from the party for anti-Semitic remarks. And this seems a bit more decisive. This seems to be, okay, we got wind of this and we're going to suspend him pending an investigation into this, which is the right way to do it. I think that when we are living in times where decisiveness is something that Keir Starmer doesn't seem to be known for, although you talk to people on the left of Labour, they're like, oh my God, he's ruthless. He just goes around with an axe, chopping people out the party, left, right and centre. It's like, well, yeah, you don't have to be part of the Labour Party. It's not a birthright to be part of the Labour Party. And if you don't stand for the values of the Labour Party, get out the Labour Party because you're destroying the Labour Party. It's as simple as that. So Starmer has these accusations levelled against him of being indecisive. And that's pretty bad. That's pretty toxic. That's something that's difficult to show that you're not without being really, really decisive. And then you've got that problem of making a mistake, being too hasty and deciding something and then realising you've effed up. And I get that. And I understand that Starmer is a careful man. Let's put it that way. He considers things, which isn't the same as not being decisive, because I think once he makes a decision, he goes with it. But it does look like this sort of snowball effect of the dithering over the £28 billion green spending promise, and then the inaction over the weekend against the Labour candidate in Rochdale for these remarks that he's made. Yeah, I think that Labour needs to be more dynamic. I think that they need to make decisions quicker, essentially. And again, as we talk about on this channel so much, a big issue for Labour, it's kind of Achilles' heel in many ways, is its comms. And in some respects, it's not Labour's fault that the British media is owned by a handful of billionaires who are all Tories. I get that, that's not their fault, but it is Labour's fault when they don't go on they're not proactive. They seem quite reactive to what the Tories are doing, and rather than setting the news agenda themselves, they always seem to be sort of chasing the error, as they say in the army. Apparently, it's near Accrington. Oh, lovely. Where's that? I'm joking. I don't know where. Anyway, so oh, that's not good. I've knocked something else. Right, so I just hope the gym is quiet today, says Siskin Edge. Cool. It's the comms when something does happen. It's like radio silence. Purity, you're absolutely right. But we need to, we're doing our best to try and people behind the scenes here at Labour Social and our friends who are content producers who make left-wing content, not necessarily Labour members or even Labour supporters, but there is a consensus amongst us that the Labour comms need to communicate better, because communication should be two-way. And this is why I always have when we do live shows, we always have the chat up. When I do Moments of Truth or whatever, I always encourage people to leave comments, because it should be a two-way conversation and people should feel involved. You shouldn't just feel like you're a passive viewer of this. You should feel like you can actually warp reality like you're in the goddamn Matrix and send our conversations on these shows off in a completely different direction with a good point or a good question. And I think that's what Labour should be. Labour should be really pushing for this more inclusive model of communication, which they don't. They just seem to be stuck in the 1970s producing press releases, effectively saying, this is what we're doing, and giving it to some newspapers that nobody under the age of 50 reads. So, yeah, we can only go on about it so much, but, and this is the last point on this, they're still 20 points ahead in the polls, so I don't think they're going to listen to it. I don't think they care. I don't know the point where they're like, yeah, whatever. Whatever, guys. Yeah, comms, that'd be nice. Just a nice to have. But just on a personal note, it's not enough for me for Labour to just not be the Tories. Okay, they've got to be more. They've got to be more than just not the Tories. And I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way. No hugs for me, said David. No, sorry, mate. You're in Spain. It's far too far away. My arms don't reach that far. Pikachu says, Starmer should say that if any allegations of anti-Semitism, especially with the Labour candidate, they should raise the issue with the NEC. Matrix Resurrections, yes or no? Do you know what? No, because we watched the first half hour and both me and my partner fell asleep watching Matrix Resurrections. So there you go. I'll try it again at some point. Purity says, you, Phil, and the other Graham do a great job on shoestring budget. Labour really don't have a good excuse. They really don't. But the thing is, even on a shoestring budget, you can produce pretty good content. You know, it's not that expensive. I mean, this is free. Like, I'm broadcasting now, potentially, and I'm not, but like, potentially to every single mobile phone in the world. Yeah, that anyone can watch this from any country, anywhere in the world, as long as they've got mobile signal. They can watch this in 144p if they want to, up a hill, up in Annapurna, in Nepal. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyone can watch this, and it's free. Back in the 90s, if you wanted to broadcast to this many people, like, it would cost millions. Like, literally, just to sit here in a studio with a green screen behind me would cost a staggering amount of money to broadcast to that many people all at the same time. And now we can do it. We can do it live, and you can leave your comments as we're doing it. This is all real time. I mean, it's mind-blowing, and it's exciting, and it's also been around for over a decade now. This is the ability to do live shows on YouTube like this. And like, why aren't they just making the most of it? I just don't. It's one of my eternal frustrations. But yeah, we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Give him a poke the bear. But yes, the new media does offer a lot of opportunities through YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, I guess, X, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, and what's the one called that people use? LinkedIn. I was thinking InDesign, but that's an Adobe package. Fable Blaze, one of these days, you're going to have to show us who's hiding behind the green screen. It's not just a wall. It's just a wall behind there. It would be quite funny if someone's just like, I don't know, on like a pedal bike, on like what are they called? You know, like the stationary bikes that they have in the gym. And one of them like powering the output. Anyway, we're going to head over to the papers now. These are the papers for this morning. We've got Labour in crisis after second suspension. This is about Graham Jones and the fact that they've had to suspend him. But, I mean, there's a bit of time before the general election. This isn't for a by-election or anything, so they should have plenty of time to sort that out. The vetting process. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because I think about, like, if I have to go for a proper job and I have to go through my social media to see if there's anything a bit ropey on there that I've just tweeted while I was drunk and thought I was being funny and didn't quite mean what I wrote. And I can't, like, there's something like 30,000 tweets. There's like just as many Facebook posts. There's more videos on this channel than you can see at the moment because a lot of them are set to unlisted. So that the Labour social videos always come up on the For You, because you don't want the For You section to come up with videos of me traveling around Greece 20 years ago. It's not really what you came to this channel to watch. There is another channel you can watch for that, but it hasn't got the videos on yet, but it will. But yeah, there's a lot of material. There's a lot of material. Think about the fact that I've made a video pretty much daily, at least one a day, for the last 3-4 years. Yeah, and some of them have gone to an hour in length, and I've talked for an hour. I mean, yeah. So I don't really know, like, how I could be vetted, and like if I did get vetted, if it would be thorough enough. I don't know. I suppose it was something that AI could get onto, isn't it? They could just go through everything. You should be able to write on AI, right? Here's me. This is my online presence. This is everything about me. This is my website. This is my Twitter feed. Go through it all. And if there's anything that's remotely dodgy, can you get rid of it? Please. Videos of you covered in grease. Yes, AB. That's what's there. Anyway, right. So we're having a look at the papers. The Times there. Yeah, Labour in crisis. Are they in crisis though? Are they? I mean, really? They're still 20 points ahead in the polls, and Sunak had a shocker of a week going on that GB News show that I was invited on, and I invited to ask a question on. And then I was bumped at the last minute when they actually did some due diligence and looked me up online. I went, oh, he's not really a Brexit voting Tory. Can't let him in the audience then. Anyway, if you didn't have to show ID, I could have got away with it. Daily Telegraph there. Labour faces fresh crisis over anti-Israel remarks. I just to say as well, there's a fine line between accusing the Israeli government of not being prepared enough for the October 7th attacks, which I think we can all agree on, and then accusing them of collaborating with Hamas to make those attacks happen. I think there's a gulf of difference there. I don't think there is a gulf of difference there, and I think that's where this Azhar Ali fella in Rochdale, I think that's where he sort of fell down the rabbit hole of falling for a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Let's not do that. So there you go. And then there's some woman in some red things. Row over Harry's royal website rebrand. A typical Daily Mail is going off on one about the Harry and Meghan have a new website, and it doesn't mention the Queen or Major Tom or Captain Tom. Sorry, Captain Tom, not Major Tom. He went into space. The bastards. How dare they? And also, we've got about Steve Wright, who died at the age of 69 suddenly. We don't know what he died of, what happened. He recorded his last show, or his last show went out on Sunday. And he said, I'll see you next week. And he's not going to. So that's pretty sad because he was quite beloved. And then there's a trial going on about the murder of Sharon. What was her name? Oh God, I'm getting adverts up here. Sharon Brzezinski, who was a police officer who was murdered in 2005. What else have we got here? We've got Labour in turmoil again. This Labour in crisis, Labour in turmoil. Adverts with Vistaprint. You see where I've been surfing. Labour in turmoil again. Okay, just on the grand scheme of things, I think they're going to be all right. And then this is about Tobias Elwood, who's not one of my favourite people, but I don't think that anyone should be besieged in their home and being accused of being a war criminal. It's really quite unhelpful, but I do think this is the Express, and I do think they probably are over-egging the pudding somewhat here. But what on earth is Britain coming to? Well, you wanted it, mate. This is the Britain that you created for some reason. Bosses gushing tribute to the iconic star they axed after 40 years. They didn't axe him. What? Hang on. He was still on. Wasn't he still on BBC Radio 2 this week? I didn't know he'd been axed. Anyway, and that's about Steve Wright. And then Starmer fights to limit damage after second candidate rants about Israel. And then most NATO members to hit spending goal in Trump containment strategy. So, in a way, Trump is doing something inadvertently where NATO members are now like, oh, we better had spend 2% of our GDP on our NATO commitments, not NATO, on our military, not because they're scared of Trump invading them. They're scared of or winning. They're scared of Putin. Putin's the big problem, and the Metro has gone with the website relaunch of the Sussexes, and you know what? In another world, you've got the intro again. That's nice. My name nearly came up. In another universe, right? They put the fact that they were royals and the fact that Harry's dad is the King of England. They put that all over the website, and those same newspapers wrote how bad it was that they were just living off their family name and they should get a proper job. Look at them sponging off their family name, the name of the family that they betrayed. So it's quite funny that they went, okay, well, we won't mention it then. Oh, how dare you not mention that your dad's the king. Oh, you make me sick. Which is quite typical of these newspapers. And I'm sure that these scumbags who write these newspapers, they sit around laughing about this stuff. So they're like, oh, they've rebranded the website. And they go, oh, before we look at it, if they mention that Harry is the son of the King of England, we'll have a go at them, X, Y, Z. It's probably all written out. Probably all written out before the website was even relaunched. Oh, by the way, if they've got that website, the Sussexes, yeah, they ever redo that website? We've got two front page scoops ready to go. One that says they're scum for mentioning the king, and then we've got another one that says they're scum for not mentioning the king. Ha 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 ha! Got them both ways. Anyway, so I was going to mention as well, Grant Shapps, Corrine Stockheath, or whatever he's calling himself this week. He mentioned he was asked about Starmer and Labour's crisis. I struggle to call it a crisis. I don't think it's a crisis. And he said that Starmer was only acting after political pressure, not principle. Bit rich. Acting after political pressure, not principle. That is there an alternative reality that I've stepped into in which COVID didn't happen and Boris Johnson wasn't our prime minister during the COVID crisis, in which he made no decision about anything until the pressure on him became insurmountable, and then he made the worst possible decision at the last possible moment, when if he'd made that same decision a couple of weeks earlier, he could have saved literally hundreds of thousands of lives. Yeah, that one. Okay, yeah. Political pressure, not principle. Because they know, and that's straight out the Tory press office, that they've looked at how people consider Starmer, and one of the big things that is used by the anti-Starmer groups, which includes the Tories, Refuck, Reclaim, Reimagine, what was Respect? That was the George Galloway vehicle that he was in for a little bit. The little kid from the Owen Jones from The Guardian, and yeah, people who are on the far left, the Greens, the SNP. I don't think Plaid Cymru care, but other parties do. The attack line has to be that he's a man of no principles, because when polled, people say, oh, I think that Starmer has principles. So they're like, okay, that's what we're going to have to go after. We're going to have to go after that and say he's got no principles. So they've made it really clear with this announcement by Grant Shapps, this declaration that he didn't act on principle. And that's what the whole Beergate thing was about. You say you're a man of principle. Well, you're actually not, because you had a beer. And this speaks to a strategy that is used by people who want the Tories to stay in power forever, which is you demand perfection from your opponents, and if they make one mistake, so they can say 90 things that are true, but that one thing that they said that they got the numbers wrong on in that conversation, you pounce on that and you will not let it go, and you go on and on and on and on and on about it. And I was watching something about there's something called a Gish Gallop. We talked about it on the show before, and that is what right-wing MPs, politicians all over the world do, which is they just talk a load of bollocks very, very fast. In a minute, they will say like 7 or 8 lies. And there isn't enough time in the interview for the interviewer or the person who's the political opponent, if it's one of those kind of adversarial debates, to refute all of the arguments. So what the left who've kind of cottoned onto this has been doing is actually knowing the kind of shit that they'll come out with, because it's always the same. It's not like there's any variance here. They always come out with the same shit, and being able to refute it really, really quickly. But then the counter to that on the other side is, oh, you made a slight mistake in one of the things you said, so it absolutely discredits everything else. So whereas Starmer is a man of principle who literally saved hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of lives around the world by going around the world and basically helping change the legal systems around the world to get rid of the death penalty, fighting to abolish the death penalty. And there would have been and the Tories will jump on that and say, oh, well, he defended murderers, he defended rapists. Yeah, but he also defended innocent people who were condemned to death, who have since been found out to be innocent and therefore released from jail instead of being put to death by the state. This is the guy who also represented the McLibel too in the 1990s. Pro bono, he did it for free. And yeah, so to be able to look back on that record and go, this is a man without principle, is like, I'm sorry, I can't really go along with that. And although I personally am no massive Starmer fan, I think he's all right. You know, I'm not a fan of anyone, you know, quite like Taylor Swift. I'm not going to cry because I didn't get tickets to a gig in Liverpool, in Anfield this year. I'm not going to cry about it. Maybe a little bit. But, you know, don't put anyone on a pedestal. That's my motto. Please don't put people on pedestals, especially politicians, especially politicians, especially reality TV stars turned politicians, because they're the worst. They're the worst. But yeah, attacking one thing that Starmer's done and say, oh, this proves that he's an evil person, he's all bad, I think is a bit unfair, considering if you want to have a look at someone like Boris Johnson, there's a whole a list of horrible things that man has done, from forcing his mistresses to have his abortions, to having one of his mates at work beaten up, or, you know, giving doxing a workmate, to his criminal friend Darius Guppy, to cheating on his wife with an American woman who he gave £128,000 of taxpayers' money to the absolutely horrific things that he said during the Brexit referendum campaign and afterwards. I think the lowest point of Boris Johnson's career, apart from all the coked up parties that he had at Downing Street during COVID when you couldn't visit your nan, was when he said that the way to honour Jo Cox's memory, the Labour MP who was murdered, the young mother of two who was murdered in the street by some lunatic screaming Britain first. You can probably guess which way he would have voted in the referendum. He said that getting Brexit done would be the best way to honour her memory. And I've never wanted to do violence to people so much. People just, yeah. What a terrible person. That's all I want to say about that, because I get a little bit too annoyed. But yes, the comparison is like it's just. Anything that your team can do can be excused away, and it is just the footballification of politics at the end of the day. We're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but it is the footballification of politics, because every time, you know, your player commits a foul, it's, come on, ref, that was never a foul. And then when one of your players blatantly dives on the ground in the penalty box, it's like, oh, penalty, it's a penalty, we've got to. Yeah, one rule for us, one rule for the others. Still can't retrieve WhatsApps. Yes, indeed. 500,000 people, innocent people dead through Labour-supported cuts. I don't understand what you mean by that, Wes. When did Labour support the cuts? When did they support austerity? They've not been in power for the last 14 years. Okay. Channel 68 says the teary-eyed left will prefer to lose Labour because principles, lol. I hope it happens. I like Tory comedy. Well, I mean, the idea of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. And, you know, if I was absolutely desperate for a change of government, and a government came along and said, we will give you 40% of what you want, Graham. 40%. I'll bite their hand off. Because I don't think I'm ever going to get 100% of what I want. And you know what? Even if I did get 100% of what I want, it might not actually work. It might not be that well thought through. It's just what I think I want. But yeah, it's frustrating to say the same. Andrew Ray says, Graham, the GPU's guy who's sussed you out was Steve Dixon. He's been Murdoch's SS officer, and then he ran the Sky Brexit program with Kay Burley. What's his name? Stephen Dixon. I had a reporter do a little bit digging into that story. But yeah, some interesting things might come out of it from the subject access request that I've put in to find out whose decision was it to bump me from the show and why. Footballification is merely a concept of in groups and out groups. It's not a concept that James O'Brien invented, despite what he says. Yeah, but he popularized it then. He popularized the word footballification. I mean, honestly, I couldn't give a shit. It's not something that keeps you up at night. Oh, he didn't really invent that thing that people think he invented. Yeah, and the Earl of Dartmouth didn't invent darts. If you want to get most Tories out of Parliament, require MPs to log on 40 hours a week to work. Yeah, I don't mind that. You know what? I don't think they should have second jobs. This is a conversation for another day. I don't think they should have any second jobs. If they do second jobs, it can't be for private companies and it has to be pro bono. So yeah, continue to practice medicine to keep your medical license alive, but you're not getting paid for it because we're going to pay you enough to be an MP to live on. All good. All good. And also, I want a hotel or a couple of hotels or a few hotels in London where MPs stay when they're in London. None of this second home in London, lark, because it's really expensive and we have a housing crisis. And no one needs two homes. Right. The only way to return a non-Tory candidate in my constituency is to vote Reform UK, and I will do it and hate that to do it. But Labour should win here. It's a swing seat. Well, hopefully Labour will win a lot of those seats in the upcoming election, but they have to, just stop making unforced errors. Yeah, stop scoring own goals to bring a couple of sports-related parlance into the chat. Anyway, I've really got to go. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the chat. I didn't get any super chats this morning, so I can't thank you for the super chats. But have a great Valentine's Day, whatever you're doing for Valentine's Day. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.